Okay, let's just dive right in. Everything you think you know about open borders, yeah, it's probably wrong. Today, we're completely shattering those baseline assumptions. We're digging into the hard data that proves the so-called common sense we all just accept without question is fundamentally flawed. So prepare yourself for a massive reality check. Seriously, this one is going to slap conventional wisdom right in the face.
We really have to start with this universally debated question. What actually happens when rich countries throw their doors wide open to poorer nations? Well, we all know the expectation, right? An immediate, catastrophic flood of migrants, millions rushing in, local wages just absolutely destroyed overnight. Basically, total economic chaos.
Well, here's the first major face slap of this explainer. The expectation is total economic collapse, but the reality? It's something completely different. And the best part is, we don't even have to guess anymore. We actually have hard data from a massive, real-world experiment. And let me tell you, it completely obliterates that doom and gloom scenario. Just take a look at how this illustrates that exact experiment. Back in 2004, the European Union admitted 10 new countries. And the wealth gaps? They were massive. You had these glaring, undeniably huge income disparities between the wealthy existing members, like Germany, and the poorer newcomers, like Poland. Literally, the invisible walls were torn down. Citizens from these poorer nations could instantly, legally take jobs anywhere in the EU. Naturally, everyone braced for impact. The whole world waited for this overwhelming wave of cheap labor to just wash over Western Europe and tank the economy. But reality delivered a massive anticlimax. The flood simply never happened. That expected overnight invasion turned out to be, well, nothing more than a ghost story. So the absolutely crucial point here is this shockingly tiny number, 0.25%. Just let that sink in for a second. A full decade after those borders opened up, less than 0.25% of the Polish population had moved to the UK. 10 whole years of unrestricted access, the doors wide open, and just a tiny, tiny fraction actually walked through it. Notice the pacing of the data here. Look really closely at how slow and creeping that trend is. There was absolutely no overnight invasion. Instead of this massive tidal wave, it was a slow, highly controlled trickle. The reality literally completely defies all our panic-driven expectations. Which, honestly, forces us to poke at our own logic a bit. Think about it. If you could instantly double your income just by crossing an invisible line on a map, why on earth would you stay behind? From a purely mathematical, robotic standpoint, it makes zero sense. Why didn't everyone just pack up their entire lives and leave for a bigger paycheck? Well, because humans aren't just economic calculators. The data proves that people deeply, profoundly prefer their home turf. We call this home attachment. It's basically the hidden emotional cost of leaving your hometown, your language, and your culture behind. And guys, it is incredibly powerful. This emotional anchor acts as a massive invisible barrier to migration. For the vast majority of us, that feeling easily outweighs pure financial gain. Let's break down how this hidden economic engine actually works. Step 1, the borders open up. Step 2, only people on the extreme margins actually move. So those with the lowest emotional barriers or the absolute highest financial needs. And step 3, this is the magic part, trade naturally balances the wages between the countries. The whole system just regulates itself beautifully. Here's the truly counterintuitive truth. You don't actually need millions of people physically moving to equalize wages globally. International product trading does the heavy lifting for you. Goods cross borders so people don't have to. The market balances out on store shelves and in shipping containers, not just at border checkpoints. It's brilliant. But what about the few who do move and the locals they end up competing with? Look at these two extremes side by side. On one hand, an unskilled Romanian migrant effectively doubles their wealth. That's a staggering 100% gain. On the other hand, the absolute worst-case scenario for local host country wages is a drop of just 6.3%. So it's a mind-blowing wealth explosion for the migrant versus a barely noticeable dip for the locals. And hey, let's be super clear about that tiny 6.3% drop. It's barely a blip. Seriously, it's just a temporary worst-case scenario. As local capital adjusts and the broader market naturally reacts to the new labor, that dip recovers. The catastrophic permanent wage collapse that critics are constantly screaming about, it just isn't supported by the hard math. Now, shift your focus to a more recent, highly debated example, the Syrian refugee crisis.
The research actually calculated the pure economic impact of letting these refugees into the EU. The result? It would generate a staggering $10,000 in net gains per average worker. We're literally talking about an absolute trillion-dollar opportunity just sitting there.
Remember, we're strictly looking at the impartial, data-driven math here. No political sides, purely mathematically speaking. Open borders equal massive global wealth creation. Closed doors? Well, that means trillions of dollars are just left on the table to burn. From a strict numbers perspective, keeping borders locked up is an incredibly expensive global mistake. But wait, there's always a catch, right? And we have to be intellectually honest here. We need to point out the blind spots. This research relies on some dangerously perfect theoretical assumptions. It assumes perfect, frictionless free trade. It treats the EU like a perfectly closed economic bubble with absolutely no messy outside influence. And it assumes capital productivity is exactly equal everywhere. The real world is gritty. These perfect laboratory conditions, they don't actually exist. However, despite those theoretical flaws, the overarching conclusion of this massive dataset easily survives the scrutiny. To quote the author directly, "The real wage effects are small, and the gains from open borders are large." The core math definitely holds up. The potential gains are astronomical, and the local costs are incredibly minimal. Which leaves us with one powerful, lingering question to end on today. If the hard economic data shows that opening borders could effectively double global wealth without crashing local economies, why are we still locking the doors? Just think about that for a minute. Let it challenge the global status quo you've always accepted. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you think you know.